Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to explore the life and legacy of one of America's most revered presidents, Abraham Lincoln. Known as the Great Emancipator, Lincoln led the nation through its most challenging period, the Civil War, and played a pivotal role in ending slavery in the United States. Let's dive into his remarkable journey from humble beginnings to becoming a defining figure in American history. Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a modest log cabin in Hardin County, Kentucky. His early life was marked by hardship and poverty. Lincoln's father, Thomas Lincoln, was a farmer and carpenter, while his mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, passed away when Abraham was just 9 years old. Despite these challenges, young Lincoln developed a voracious appetite for learning. With limited formal education, he was largely self-taught, immersing himself in books whenever he had the chance. In 1816, the Lincoln family moved to Indiana, seeking better opportunities. Here, Lincoln's early experiences shaped his views on hard work and perseverance. As a young man, he worked various jobs, including as a rail splitter, store clerk, and eventually a surveyor. His experiences working manual labor and interacting with a diverse range of people helped him develop a strong sense of empathy and justice. Lincoln's journey into politics began in 1832 when he ran for the Illinois state legislature. Although he lost this first bid, his determination did not waver. In 1834, he won a seat in the legislature as a member of the Whig Party, marking the start of a significant political career. During his time in the Illinois state legislature, Lincoln developed his skills as a debater and legislator. He also earned a reputation for his integrity and commitment to public service. In 1837, Lincoln moved to Springfield, Illinois, where he began practicing law. His legal career flourished, and he became known for his sharp intellect and persuasive arguments in court. Lincoln's ability to connect with juries and his meticulous preparation for cases earned him respect and success as a lawyer. It was also during this time that he met Mary Todd, whom he married in 1842. Together, they had 4 sons, though only one, Robert, survived into adulthood. Lincoln's national political career began in earnest in 1846 when he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. During his single term in Congress, he was an outspoken critic of the Mexican-American War, which he viewed as an unjust conflict aimed at expanding slave territories. This stance was unpopular with many of his constituents, and he did not seek re-election. However, his time in Congress solidified his position as a strong opponent of slavery. The 1850s were a period of significant political and social upheaval in the United States. The issue of slavery's expansion into new territories was a contentious topic, leading to the formation of the Republican Party in 1854. Lincoln joined the new party, attracted by its anti-slavery platform. His powerful speeches against the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed new territories to decide on the legality of slavery, brought him national attention. In 1858, Lincoln ran for the U.S. Senate against the incumbent, Stephen A. Douglas. Although Lincoln lost the election, the series of debates between him and Douglas became legendary. Known as the Lincoln-Douglas debates, these public discussions centered on the issue of slavery and its expansion. Lincoln argued that slavery was morally wrong and should not be allowed to spread to new territories, while Douglas promoted the idea of popular sovereignty, letting the settlers of each territory decide for themselves. These debates showcased Lincoln's eloquence and firm moral stance against slavery, propelling him into the national spotlight. His performance impressed many in the newly formed Republican Party, setting the stage for his presidential candidacy. In 1860, Lincoln was nominated as the Republican candidate for president. His platform focused on preventing the expansion of slavery, promoting economic modernization, and preserving the Union. The election of 1860 was one of the most pivotal in American history. Lincoln won the presidency with a plurality of the popular vote and a decisive majority in the Electoral College. His election prompted a crisis, as Southern states viewed his anti-slavery stance as a direct threat to their way of life. Shortly after his victory, South Carolina seceded from the Union, followed by several other Southern states, leading to the formation of the Confederate States of America. As Lincoln assumed office in March 1861, the nation was on the brink of civil war. His inaugural address sought to reassure the Southern states that he had no intention of abolishing slavery where it already existed, but emphasized his commitment to preserving the Union. Despite his efforts to avoid conflict, the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter in April 1861 marked the beginning of the Civil War. The early years of the Civil War were challenging for Lincoln and the Union. The war effort faced numerous setbacks, including defeats at key battles and struggles with military leadership. Despite these difficulties, Lincoln remained steadfast in his commitment to preserving the Union. He faced immense pressure from various factions within the North, including radical abolitionists who demanded immediate emancipation of all slaves and conservatives who wanted to restore peace with the South. One of Lincoln's most significant and controversial decisions during the war was the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation. Announced on September 22, 1862, and taking effect on January 1, 1863, the proclamation declared that all slaves in Confederate-held territory were to be set free. This executive order fundamentally shifted the nature of the war, making the abolition of slavery a central goal of the Union war effort. While the proclamation did not immediately free all enslaved people, it paved the way for the eventual abolition of slavery and allowed for the recruitment of African American soldiers into the Union Army. The Emancipation Proclamation also had significant diplomatic implications. It deterred European powers, particularly Britain and France, from recognizing or supporting the Confederacy. By framing the war as a fight against slavery, Lincoln garnered greater international support for the Union cause and further isolated the Confederate States. The turning point of the Civil War came in 1863 with the Union victories at the Battle of Gettysburg and the Siege of Vicksburg. The Battle of Gettysburg, fought from July 1st to July 3rd, was one of the bloodiest battles of the war and marked the last major Confederate offensive into Northern Territory. The Union victory, under the command of General George Meade, dealt a severe blow to General Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. Just a day later, on July 4th, the Union achieved another critical victory with the surrender of Confederate forces at Vicksburg, Mississippi, effectively splitting the Confederacy in two and gaining control of the Mississippi River. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, delivered on November 19, 1863, at the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery in Gettysburg, is one of his most famous speeches. In just a few short minutes, Lincoln eloquently reaffirmed the principles of liberty and equality, framing the Civil War as a test of the nation's commitment to its founding ideals. His words, "Government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth," continue to resonate as a powerful expression of democratic values. As the war continued, Lincoln faced re-election in 1864. Despite initial doubts about his chances, the Union's military successes, particularly General William Tecumseh Sherman's capture of Atlanta, bolstered his support. Lincoln ran on a platform of unconditional surrender and the permanent abolition of slavery. He won re-election by a significant margin, defeating his former general, George B. McClellan, who ran as the Democratic candidate advocating for peace negotiations with the Confederacy. In his second inaugural address, delivered on March 4, 1865, Lincoln struck a tone of reconciliation and healing. He acknowledged the deep wounds of the nation and expressed his hope for a swift and just peace. With malice toward none, with charity for all, he urged the country to move forward and rebuild. Lincoln's vision for post-war America included not only the abolition of slavery but also the integration of formerly enslaved people into American society as full citizens. Tragically, Lincoln did not live to see the full realization of his vision. On April 14, 1865, just days after General Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse effectively ended the Civil War, Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer, while attending a play at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Lincoln's death shocked the nation and plunged it into mourning. His assassination was a devastating blow to the hopes for a smooth and peaceful Reconstruction. Lincoln's legacy as the great emancipator is firmly rooted in his leadership during the Civil War and his unwavering commitment to the principles of liberty and equality. His actions paved the way for the passage of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which was ratified on December 6, 1865, formally abolishing slavery in the United States. The 14th and 15th Amendments, which followed in the Reconstruction era, aimed to secure citizenship and voting rights for African Americans, although the struggle for true equality would continue for generations. In addition to his role in ending slavery, Lincoln's legacy includes his profound impact on the American political system and national identity. His leadership helped to preserve the Union and strengthen the federal government's authority. Lincoln's vision of a united nation dedicated to the ideals of democracy and human rights continues to inspire and guide the United States. Lincoln's speeches, writings, and personal anecdotes reveal a man of deep conviction, humility, and humanity. Despite facing immense challenges and personal tragedies, he remained committed to his moral principles and to serving the American people. His ability to communicate complex ideas with clarity and compassion, as well as his willingness to engage with differing viewpoints, made him a remarkable and effective leader. Today, Abraham Lincoln is remembered not only as a president who led the nation through its darkest hours, but also as a symbol of the enduring struggle for justice and equality. His life and legacy remind us of the power of resilience, the importance of moral courage, and the enduring promise of the American experiment. As we continue to explore the life and legacy of Abraham Lincoln, it is important to understand the context and impact of his leadership during the Civil War. Lincoln's presidency was marked by a series of critical decisions and actions that not only shaped the outcome of the war but also laid the foundation for the nation's future. One of the most significant aspects of Lincoln's leadership was his approach to the question of emancipation. The Emancipation Proclamation, while a crucial step, was just the beginning of a broader effort to end slavery and redefine the nation's commitment to equality. Lincoln's views on slavery evolved over time, influenced by his moral convictions, political pressures, and the realities of war. Initially, Lincoln's primary goal was to preserve the Union, even if it meant tolerating slavery where it existed. However, as the war progressed, he increasingly saw the abolition of slavery as essential to the nation's survival and moral integrity. The issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation was a bold and controversial move. It was met with mixed reactions in the North and outright hostility in the South. Some Northern Democrats criticized it as an overreach of executive power, while radical abolitionists felt it did not go far enough. Nonetheless, the proclamation had profound implications. It redefined the Union war effort as a fight for human freedom, galvanized support among abolitionists, and encouraged thousands of African Americans to join the Union Army. The bravery and sacrifice of these soldiers played a crucial role in the Union's eventual victory. Lincoln's ability to navigate the complex political landscape of the Civil War era was a testament to his skill as a leader. He faced significant opposition not only from the Confederacy but also from factions within his own party and the broader Northern public. Balancing the demands of radical Republicans who sought immediate and sweeping changes with those of more conservative elements who were wary of disrupting the social order required careful negotiation and compromise. Lincoln's pragmatic approach enabled him to build a broad coalition of support that sustained the Union war effort. One of the most challenging aspects of Lincoln's presidency was his relationship with his military commanders. Early in the war, Lincoln struggled to find generals who could deliver decisive victories. General George B. McClellan, though talented in organizing and training troops, was overly cautious and reluctant to engage the enemy aggressively. Lincoln's frustration with McClellan's timidity led to a series of changes in military leadership. It was not until the emergence of generals like Ulysses S. Grant and William Tecumseh Sherman that Lincoln found commanders whose strategic vision and determination aligned with his own. Grant's victories in the Western Theater and his relentless pursuit of Confederate forces exemplified the kind of leadership Lincoln had been seeking. Grant's willingness to engage in total war, targeting not just enemy armies but also the economic infrastructure supporting them, was controversial but effective. Sherman's march to the sea, in particular, demonstrated the devastating impact of this strategy. By destroying railroads, factories, and supplies, Sherman aimed to break the South's will to fight and hasten the end of the war. Throughout the war, Lincoln maintained a deep concern for the welfare of soldiers and civilians affected by the conflict. He frequently visited troops in the field, boosting morale and showing his support for their sacrifices. His compassionate leadership extended to his efforts to heal the nation after the war. Lincoln's vision for Reconstruction emphasized reconciliation and rebuilding rather than retribution. He advocated for a lenient approach to reuniting the Southern states with the Union, believing that a harsh policy would only deepen divisions and prolong animosity. Lincoln's assassination on April 14, 1865, was a tragic and shocking event that plunged the nation into mourning. The loss of his leadership at such a critical juncture in American history was deeply felt. His death not only deprived the country of his guidance during the early stages of Reconstruction, but also left a lasting legacy of unfinished work. The challenges of integrating formerly enslaved people into American society, securing their rights, and rebuilding the South were immense, and the absence of Lincoln's moderating influence complicated these efforts. In the years following his death, Lincoln's legacy has been subject to extensive analysis and interpretation. Historians and scholars have debated his motivations, actions, and impact, exploring the complexities of his character and leadership. While some have criticized him for his cautious approach to emancipation and his use of executive power, the consensus recognizes his profound contributions to the nation. Lincoln's speeches and writings continue to resonate as timeless expressions of American ideals. His Gettysburg Address, though brief, encapsulated the essence of the nation's struggle and its aspirations. His second inaugural address, delivered just weeks before his assassination, offered a vision of healing and unity that remains relevant today. In it, Lincoln reflected on the causes of the war, the shared suffering of North and South, and the need for national reconciliation. His words, "with malice toward none, with charity for all," captured his hope for a just and lasting peace. The monuments and memorials dedicated to Lincoln across the United States reflect the enduring respect and admiration for his leadership. The Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., stands as a symbol of his contributions to the nation and his commitment to equality and justice. Visitors from around the world come to pay their respects and draw inspiration from his legacy. Lincoln's impact extends beyond the boundaries of the United States. His advocacy for democracy, human rights, and the rule of law has influenced leaders and movements worldwide. In times of crisis and challenge, his example of perseverance, moral clarity, and dedication to the common good serves as a guiding light. As we conclude this exploration of Abraham Lincoln's life and legacy, it is clear that his contributions to American history are unparalleled. His leadership during the Civil War, his efforts to end slavery, and his vision for a united and equitable nation have left an indelible mark on the United States. Lincoln's story is a testament to the enduring power of resilience, integrity, and the pursuit of justice. His legacy continues to inspire and challenge us to strive for a more perfect union. The global context during Lincoln's era. While the United States was engulfed in the Civil War and grappling with the profound issues of slavery and national unity, significant events and developments were occurring around the world that would shape global history. Understanding the broader global context of this era provides a deeper insight into the transformative period of the mid-19th century. The Industrial Revolution. The mid-19th century was marked by the rapid advancement of the Industrial Revolution, which began in Britain in the late 18th century and spread to other parts of Europe and North America. This period saw significant technological innovations, including the expansion of the railroad network, the development of the steam engine, and the mechanization of textile production. The Industrial Revolution transformed economies from agrarian-based to industrial and manufacturing-based, leading to urbanization and significant social changes. These advancements increased productivity and economic growth, but also led to challenging working conditions, prompting the rise of labor movements and calls for social reform. European revolutions of 1848. The year 1848 was a revolutionary one for Europe, with a wave of political upheavals and revolutions sweeping across the continent. Known as the Springtime of Nations, these revolutions were driven by demands for political liberalization, national self-determination, and social and economic reforms. In France, the February Revolution led to the establishment of the Second Republic. In the Austrian Empire, various ethnic groups sought greater autonomy and rights, while in the German states, there were calls for unification and democratic governance. Although many of these uprisings were eventually suppressed, they left a lasting impact on European politics and society, laying the groundwork for future democratic movements. The Crimean War, 1853 to 1856. The Crimean War was a significant conflict involving the Ottoman Empire, Russia, Britain, France, and Sardinia. It was primarily fought on the Crimean Peninsula and was sparked by disputes over religious rights in the Holy Land and the decline of the Ottoman Empire. The war is notable for its brutal battles, including the siege of Sevastopol and the widespread suffering of soldiers and civilians. The conflict also highlighted the importance of modern military logistics and medical care, with figures like Florence Nightingale revolutionizing nursing practices. The Crimean War exposed the weaknesses of the Russian military and led to significant reforms in the Russian Empire. The Taiping Rebellion, 1850 to 1864. In China, the Taiping Rebellion was one of the deadliest conflicts in human history, with an estimated 20 to 30 million deaths. Led by Hong Xiuquan, who claimed to be the younger brother of Jesus Christ, the rebellion sought to overthrow the Qing dynasty and establish a new kingdom based on religious and social reforms. The Taiping forces captured large territories in southern China, including the major city of Nanjing. The conflict devastated the Chinese countryside and economy, weakening the Qing dynasty and contributing to the eventual fall of imperial rule in China. The rebellion also had significant implications for foreign powers with interests in China, influencing the dynamics of Western imperialism in Asia. Japanese isolation and the opening of Japan, 1853 to 1868. During the mid-19th century, Japan underwent a dramatic transformation from a feudal, isolated society to a modern, industrialized nation. For over 2 centuries, Japan had maintained a policy of isolation under the Tokugawa shogunate, limiting contact with the outside world. This changed in 1853 when Commodore Matthew Perry of the United States Navy arrived in Japan with a fleet of ships, demanding the opening of Japanese ports to American trade. The resulting Treaty of Kanagawa in 1854 ended Japan's isolation and marked the beginning of significant political and social changes. This period, known as the Bakumatsu, culminated in the Meiji Restoration of 1868, which restored imperial rule under Emperor Meiji and set Japan on a path of rapid modernization and industrialization. The unification of Italy, 1848 to 1870. The mid-19th century also saw the unification of Italy, a complex process that involved a series of wars, diplomatic maneuvers, and nationalist movements. The movement for Italian unification, known as the Risorgimento, was driven by figures such as Giuseppe Garibaldi, Count Camillo di Cavour, and Giuseppe Mazzini. The efforts to unify the various Italian states and regions culminated in the establishment of the Kingdom of Italy in 1861, with Victor Emmanuel II as its first king. The unification process continued with the annexation of Venetia in 1866 and the capture of Rome in 1870, completing the territorial consolidation of Italy. This period marked a significant shift in the political landscape of Europe and contributed to the rise of nationalism. The expansion of the British Empire. The British Empire continued to expand during this period, solidifying its position as the world's leading colonial power. British interests in India were strengthened following the Indian Rebellion of 1857, which led to the dissolution of the British East India Company and the establishment of direct British rule over India. This period also saw the exploration and colonization of Africa, with British explorers like David Livingstone and Henry Morton Stanley venturing into the interior of the continent. The expansion of the British Empire brought significant economic benefits to Britain, but also led to the exploitation and subjugation of indigenous populations, creating lasting legacies of colonialism. The American expansion westward, manifest destiny. In the United States, the concept of manifest destiny fueled westward expansion, leading to the annexation of vast territories and the displacement of Native American populations. The acquisition of territories through events such as the Louisiana Purchase, the Texas Revolution, and the Mexican-American War significantly expanded the nation's borders. The construction of the Transcontinental Railroad, completed in 1869, further facilitated westward migration and economic development. However, this expansion also resulted in conflicts with Native American tribes, who were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands, leading to a series of wars and tragic events such as the Trail of Tears. Scientific and cultural advancements. The mid-19th century was also a period of remarkable scientific and cultural advancements. Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species in 1859, introducing the theory of evolution by natural selection and revolutionizing the field of biology. In literature, figures such as Charles Dickens, Leo Tolstoy, and Fyodor Dostoevsky produced works that are considered masterpieces of world literature. Advances in medicine, such as the development of anesthesia and antiseptic techniques, significantly improved surgical outcomes and patient care. The arts also flourished, with the Impressionist movement in painting challenging traditional artistic conventions and exploring new techniques and perspectives. In summary, the era of Abraham Lincoln was a time of profound global transformation. The Industrial Revolution, political revolutions, wars, and social movements of the mid-19th century shaped the modern world in significant ways. These events, occurring concurrently with the American Civil War, highlight the interconnectedness of global history and the far-reaching impacts of this transformative period. Key figures of the mid-19th century. The mid-19th century was a time of profound change and significant historical developments around the world. Several key figures played pivotal roles in shaping the events and movements of this era. Let's explore some of the most influential individuals from this period. Queen Victoria, 1819 to 1901. Queen Victoria reigned over the British Empire from 1837 until her death in 1901, making her one of the longest reigning monarchs in British history. Her reign, known as the Victorian era, was marked by significant industrial, cultural, political, and scientific progress in the United Kingdom. Under her rule, the British Empire expanded to its greatest territorial extent, becoming a global superpower. Victoria's influence extended beyond politics. She became a symbol of the era's values, including morality, family, and national pride. Her legacy includes the stabilization and modernization of the British monarchy and the promotion of social reforms. Charles Darwin, 1809 to 1882. Charles Darwin was an English naturalist and geologist best known for his contributions to the science of evolution. His seminal work, On the Origin of Species, published in 1859, introduced the theory of natural selection and fundamentally changed the understanding of biological diversity. Darwin's ideas challenged established scientific and religious beliefs, sparking widespread debate and further research in the fields of biology, genetics, and anthropology. His work laid the groundwork for modern evolutionary biology and had a profound impact on the scientific community and society at large. Otto von Bismarck, 1815 to 1898. Otto von Bismarck, known as the Iron Chancellor, was a Prussian statesman who played a crucial role in the unification of Germany. As Prime Minister of Prussia and later the first Chancellor of the German Empire, Bismarck used a combination of diplomacy, military strategy, and political maneuvering to unify the various German states under Prussian leadership. His policies of realpolitik, or pragmatic politics, emphasized practical solutions over ideological considerations. Bismarck's leadership not only led to the creation of a powerful and unified German state, but also established a new balance of power in Europe that would influence international relations for decades. Florence Nightingale, 1820 to 1910. Florence Nightingale, known as the founder of modern nursing, gained fame for her work during the Crimean War, where she improved sanitary conditions and care for wounded soldiers. Her efforts significantly reduced the mortality rate and set new standards for hygiene and medical care in hospitals. Nightingale's work extended beyond the battlefield. She authored numerous texts on nursing practices and founded the Nightingale Training School for Nurses in London. Her pioneering contributions to healthcare and her emphasis on evidence-based practice transformed nursing into a respected and essential profession. Giuseppe Garibaldi, 1807 to 1882. Giuseppe Garibaldi was an Italian general, nationalist, and key figure in the unification of Italy. He is best known for his campaigns with the volunteer force known as the Red Shirts, which played a crucial role in unifying the Italian peninsula. Garibaldi's daring military exploits and charismatic leadership made him a hero to many Italians and a symbol of the struggle for national independence and democracy. His efforts culminated in the creation of the Kingdom of Italy in 1861, and he continued to advocate for democratic reforms and social justice throughout his life. Tsar Alexander II, 1818 to 1881. Tsar Alexander II of Russia is best known for his significant reforms, most notably the emancipation of the serfs in 1861. This reform freed millions of serfs, granting them rights to own property and marry without the need for their landlord's consent. Alexander II's reign was characterized by efforts to modernize Russia, including reforms in the judicial system, military, and local government. Despite his progressive initiatives, his reign faced opposition from conservative factions and radical revolutionaries. Alexander II was assassinated by a member of the revolutionary group People's Will in 1881, highlighting the volatile political climate of the era. Emperor Meiji, 1852–1912. Emperor Meiji was the 122nd Emperor of Japan, reigning from 1867 to 1912. His reign, known as the Meiji era, marked a period of rapid modernization and industrialization in Japan. Under his leadership, Japan transitioned from a feudal society to a modern industrial state, adopting Western technologies, education systems, and military practices. The Meiji Restoration, which restored imperial rule and ended the Tokugawa shogunate, was a turning point in Japanese history. Emperor Meiji's policies laid the foundation for Japan's emergence as a major world power in the early 20th century. Napoleon III, 1808–1873. Napoleon III, nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, was the first president of France and later the emperor of the Second French Empire. Elected president in 1848, he staged a coup d'état in 1851, subsequently declaring himself emperor in 1852. His reign saw significant economic growth, modernization of Paris, and expansion of the French colonial empire. However, his foreign policies, particularly the disastrous Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 1871, led to his downfall and the collapse of the Second Empire. Despite his controversial legacy, Napoleon III's era was marked by notable social and economic progress in France. Matthew Perry, 1794 to 1858. Commodore Matthew Perry was an American naval officer who played a crucial role in opening Japan to the West. In 1853, Perry led a fleet of American warships to Japan, demanding that the country open its ports to American trade. His mission resulted in the signing of the Treaty of Kanagawa in 1854, which ended Japan's 220-year policy of isolation and initiated a period of significant political and social change. Perry's expedition is often credited with catalyzing the modernization of Japan and its emergence as a major global power. Key figures of the American Civil War era. The American Civil War was not only shaped by its prominent leaders, but also by numerous individuals whose contributions significantly impacted the course of the war and the nation's history. Here are some of the key figures from this period. Frederick Douglass, 1818 to 1895. Frederick Douglass was a former enslaved person who became a leading abolitionist, writer, and orator. Born into slavery in Maryland, Douglass escaped to freedom in 1838 and quickly rose to prominence as a powerful voice against slavery. His autobiographies, including Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, provided a first-hand account of the horrors of slavery and galvanized the abolitionist movement. During the Civil War, Douglass was a strong advocate for the enlistment of African American soldiers in the Union Army and worked closely with President Lincoln to promote the cause of emancipation. Harriet Tubman, 1822 to 1913. Harriet Tubman was an escaped enslaved person who became a leading abolitionist and conductor on the Underground Railroad. She is renowned for her bravery and determination in leading countless enslaved people to freedom through a network of safe houses and secret routes. During the Civil War, Tubman served as a scout, spy, and nurse for the Union Army, conducting missions behind enemy lines and providing critical intelligence. Her fearless efforts and unwavering commitment to freedom made her a legendary figure in American history. Clara Barton, 1821 to 1912. Clara Barton, known as the Angel of the Battlefield, was a pioneering nurse who provided medical care to wounded soldiers during the Civil War. She independently organized the distribution of supplies and personally tended to the injured on numerous battlefields, including Antietam and Fredericksburg. Barton's experiences during the war led her to establish the American Red Cross in 1881, an organization dedicated to providing emergency assistance and disaster relief. Her contributions to healthcare and humanitarian aid left a lasting impact on the field of nursing. William Tecumseh Sherman, 1820 to 1891. General William Tecumseh Sherman was a Union commander known for his harsh tactics and philosophy of total war. His famous march to the sea in 1864, during which his forces captured Atlanta and then marched to Savannah, Georgia, was characterized by the widespread destruction of Southern infrastructure and resources. Sherman's tactics aimed to break the will of the Confederacy and hasten the end of the war. His contributions to the Union victory and his post-war role as commanding general of the Army were significant in shaping military strategy. Stonewall Jackson, 1824 to 1863. General Thomas Stonewall Jackson was one of the most revered Confederate commanders. Known for his fearless and aggressive tactics, Jackson earned his nickname at the First Battle of Bull Run, where he stood firm like a stone wall against Union forces. His Shenandoah Valley campaign in 1862 is considered one of the most brilliant military operations in American history. Jackson's death in 1863, after being accidentally shot by his own men, was a significant blow to the Confederate cause. Jefferson Davis, 1808 to 1889. Jefferson Davis was the President of the Confederate States of America. A former U.S. Senator and Secretary of War, Davis faced the immense challenge of leading the Confederacy through the Civil War. His administration struggled with issues of states' rights and centralized control, often clashing with state governors over resources and military strategy. Despite his efforts, Davis was unable to secure international recognition for the Confederacy. After the war, he was captured, imprisoned, and later released without trial. Davis spent his later years writing and advocating for the Southern cause. Robert E. Lee, 1807 to 1870. General Robert E. Lee was the commander of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia and one of the most respected military leaders of the Civil War. Despite his opposition to secession, Lee chose to fight for his home state of Virginia. His leadership and tactical brilliance earned him a reputation as a formidable commander. Lee achieved several significant victories against Union forces, but his invasions of the North were unsuccessful. His surrender to Ulysses South Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in 1865 marked the end of the Confederacy. Ulysses S. Grant, 1822 to 1885. General Ulysses S. Grant was the commanding general of the Union Army and a key figure in the Union's victory. Known for his relentless pursuit of Confederate forces, Grant implemented a strategy of total war, coordinating multiple offensives and applying continuous pressure on Confederate forces. His tenacity and willingness to engage in protracted battles eventually led to the collapse of the Confederacy. After the war, Grant served 2 terms as President of the United States, overseeing Reconstruction and advocating for civil rights for African Americans. Ulysses S. Grant, 1822 to 1885. General Ulysses S. Grant was the commanding general of the Union Army and a key figure in the Union's victory. Known for his relentless pursuit of Confederate forces, Grant implemented a strategy of total war, coordinating multiple offensives and applying continuous pressure on Confederate forces. His tenacity and willingness to engage in protracted battles eventually led to the collapse of the Confederacy. After the war, Grant served 2 terms as President of the United States, overseeing Reconstruction and advocating for civil rights for African Americans. John Wilkes Booth, 1838 to 1865. John Wilkes Booth was an American actor who assassinated President Abraham Lincoln on April 14, 1865. Booth was a Confederate sympathizer and vehemently opposed Lincoln's policies, particularly those related to the abolition of slavery. His assassination of Lincoln at Ford's Theater was part of a larger conspiracy to revive the Confederate cause by eliminating key government officials. Booth was killed by Union soldiers 12 days after the assassination, and his actions left a lasting impact on American history. Andrew Johnson, 1808 to 1875. Andrew Johnson was the vice president who succeeded Abraham Lincoln following his assassination. As the 17th President of the United States, Johnson faced the daunting task of leading the nation through Reconstruction. His lenient policies towards the South and opposition to civil rights legislation for freed slaves led to significant conflicts with Congress. Johnson's presidency was marred by his impeachment in 1868, though he was acquitted by a single vote in the Senate. His tenure highlighted the deep divisions in post-war America and the challenges of rebuilding the nation. Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, 1828 to 1914. Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain was a Union officer who played a crucial role in the Battle of Gettysburg. Leading the 20th Maine Regiment, Chamberlain's defense of Little Round Top was instrumental in securing the Union's position during the battle. For his bravery, he was awarded the Medal of Honor. After the war, Chamberlain served as governor of Maine and president of Bowdoin College. His leadership and valor during the war made him a celebrated figure in American military history. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of Abraham Lincoln. His legacy reminds us of the importance of leadership, compassion, and the unwavering pursuit of equality and justice. Stay tuned for more stories from history that shape our present and future.